The knock came just as Lila was about to sit down with a cup of tea. It was late afternoon, the quiet hour when the sunlight turned soft and golden. The house felt still, almost sleepy. Her husband, Aaron, would not be home for another 2 hours. He had texted her earlier, saying he had another late meeting. Lila tried not to think about how often those messages had started coming. She set the cup on the kitchen counter and walked toward the door. The knock came again, firmer this time. Not impatient. Just certain. She opened the door and saw a woman standing on the porch. The woman looked to be in her early 30s, dressed in simple office clothes, a navy blouse, black trousers, low heels. Her brown hair was pulled back neatly, but a few strands had slipped loose, brushing her cheek. She looked composed on the outside, yet her hands were clasped tightly in front of her, fingers twisting together. Yes? Lila asked, polite but cautious. The woman swallowed. Hi. My name is Camille. I work with Aaron. The world seemed to pause. Lila kept her face calm. Oh. I see. Camille's eyes searched hers, as if measuring something. I'm sorry to come without calling. I know this is strange. Strange was not the word Lila would have chosen. Still, she stepped aside. Do you want to come in? She wasn't sure why she invited her inside. Maybe it was pride. Maybe she didn't want the neighbors to see a serious conversation happening on her porch. Maybe she wanted to look brave. Camille hesitated for half a second, then nodded and walked in. The house suddenly felt smaller. Lila led her to the living room. Everything was neat, the cream sofa, the glass coffee table, the framed wedding photo on the wall. In that photo, she and Aaron were laughing at something the photographer had said. They looked young and fearless. Camille's gaze flickered to the picture but quickly moved away. Please, sit, Lila said. Camille perched on the edge of the sofa, back straight, knees together. She looked like someone preparing for a difficult speech. Lila remained standing for a moment before sitting across from her. So, you work with my husband? Yes, Camille replied softly. We're in the same department. There was a brief silence. It stretched long enough to become heavy. Lila broke it. Is everything okay at the office? Camille took a slow breath. That's why I'm here. Lila felt her pulse quicken, but she kept her voice steady. Go on. I didn't know if I should come, Camille began. I've been thinking about it for days. Maybe weeks. I don't want you to misunderstand my reasons. What reasons? Lila asked, sharper now. Camille's eyes met hers. They were clear. Nervous, but not guilty. It's about Aaron, she said. The name landed between them like something fragile. Lila crossed her arms without realizing it. What about him? Camille looked down at her hands. He hasn't been himself. Lila almost laughed at that. The sentence felt too simple, too vague. That's not unusual, she replied carefully. People have stress. Yes, Camille agreed quickly. It's stress. A lot of it. Silence again. Lila's mind began racing ahead of her. Late nights. Missed dinners. The way Aaron had been quiet at breakfast, scrolling through his phone. The way he sometimes seemed far away, even when sitting right next to her. She had told herself it was work pressure, but why was this woman here? Please just say what you came to say, Lila said. Camille nodded. There are changes happening at the company. Big ones. Management hasn't announced everything yet, but people know. Departments are merging. Positions might be cut. Lila felt her shoulders relax slightly. This wasn't what she expected, she asked, and Aaron's team is directly affected. Lila blinked. He didn't tell me that. I know, Camille said gently. That's why I'm here. The word stung. You think he can't talk to his own wife? Lila asked, a trace of hurt slipping into her voice. No, Camille said quickly. That's not what I mean. He talks about you all the time. Lila's breath caught. He does? She asked before she could stop herself. Yes. He says you're the strongest person he knows. That you always believe in him. Something inside her shifted. Camille continued, speaking faster now, as if she wanted to get everything out before losing courage. He's been staying late because he's trying to fix projects, to prove he's necessary. He doesn't want to be the one they let go. Lila stared at her. Aaron is good at his job. I know. Everyone knows. But sometimes that's not enough. Decisions don't always feel fair. The room felt warmer. Lila stood up and walked to the window, needing space. If this was true, why hadn't Aaron told her? Why had he chosen silence instead of trust? Behind her, Camille spoke again, voice softer. He looks exhausted. He doesn't sleep much. He drinks too much coffee. He stares at his screen long after everyone else has gone home. Lila closed her eyes for a second. She had noticed the dark circles under his eyes. You seem to observe him very closely, she said without turning around. There was no anger in her tone, only a quiet edge. Camille didn't flinch. We work side by side. It's hard not to notice. Lila turned back slowly. Why do you care? The question hung in the air. Camille hesitated. Because he reminds me of someone who carried everything alone. Someone who thought asking for help meant weakness. Lila studied her carefully. There was no flirtation in her expression. No hidden smile. Only concern. Still, something twisted inside Lila's chest. Another woman had seen her husband struggle before she had. That's still not a reason to come to my house, Lila said. Camille nodded. You're right. It's not. But yesterday, he almost fainted in the office. He said he was fine, but he wasn't. He refused to go home early. Lila's heart dropped. He what? It wasn't dramatic, Camille explained quickly. He just got dizzy. But it scared me. Lila's thoughts moved fast now. Aaron had brushed off her questions about being tired. He had smiled and said, I'm fine, Lil. Just busy. She had believed him because it was easier, I thought. Camille continued carefully, that maybe he's protecting you. Maybe he thinks if he keeps the stress to himself, you won't worry. Lila felt tears press against her eyes, but she blinked them away, protecting her daughter or shutting her out. He doesn't need to protect me, she said quietly. We're supposed to be partners. I know, Camille replied. That's why I came. The honesty in her voice made it harder to be angry. Lila walked back and sat down slowly. Does he know you're here? No, and if he finds out? Camille gave a small, sad smile. He might be upset. But I'd rather he be upset than collapse from stress. The room felt heavy with truth. Lila looked at the wedding photo again. She remembered the promises they had made. To share everything. To face challenges together. Somewhere along the way, they had started carrying separate burdens. Has he? Lila paused, choosing her words. Has he said anything else about me? Camille's expression softened. He worries that if he loses this job, you'll see him differently. The words hit hard. That's ridiculous, Lila whispered. He doesn't think so. Silence settled between them once more, but this time it wasn't sharp. It was thoughtful. Lila felt something unexpected rising inside her, not jealousy, not rage, but guilt. She had been frustrated with Aaron's distance. She had complained about his late nights. She had felt lonely in their own home, but she hadn't asked what was behind it. I thought, she began slowly, I thought maybe he was pulling away. Camille shook her head. If anything, he's trying too hard to hold everything together. Lila let out a shaky breath. The knock on the door that had felt like a threat now felt like a mirror. It was showing her a side of her marriage she had ignored. I don't know what to say, she admitted. You don't have to say anything, Camille replied. Just, talk to him. Please. Lila studied her one last time. There was sincerity there. No hidden agenda. No secret longing, just concern. Thank you for telling me, Lila said finally. Camille stood, relief visible in her shoulders. I'm sorry for showing up like this. It's okay, Lila answered, though her heart was still racing. They walked to the door together. Before stepping outside, Camille paused. He loves you. That part is clear. Lila swallowed. Then he should let me stand beside him, she said quietly. Camille gave a small nod and left. The door closed with a soft click. Lila leaned against it, her mind spinning. The house was quiet again, but it no longer felt peaceful. It felt charged, like the air before a storm. She walked slowly back into the living room. The sunlight had shifted, casting longer shadows across the floor. The wedding photo caught the light, making their smiling faces glow. Lost, that was the word Camille had used without saying it directly. Aaron wasn't distant because he didn't care, that he was distant because he was afraid. Lila felt a mix of emotions, hurt that he hadn't trusted her, sadness that he carried so much alone, and a strange gratitude toward the woman who had knocked on her door. She picked up her phone, staring at Aaron's name on the screen. She could call him right now, she could demand answers, but something told her this needed to be handled gently. Tonight, when he walked through that door, she would look at him differently. Not as a man drifting away, but as a man drowning quietly, and she would decide whether to pull him closer, or let the silence grow even wider.
After Camille left, the living room felt unusually still. Lila sat on the edge of the sofa, her hands gripping the cushion as if it could anchor her thoughts. Her mind replayed every word Camille had spoken. Aaron wasn't distant because of disinterest or lack of love, she realized. He was overwhelmed, burdened with stress, hiding it to protect her, or perhaps because he thought she wouldn't understand. The idea made Lila ache. She had felt alone, neglected, and frustrated in recent weeks, but maybe she had misread everything. Maybe the problem wasn't the absence of love, it was silence. The sun dipped lower, golden lights spilling across the living room. Lila's eyes lingered on their wedding photo. She remembered Aaron's laughter that day, the way his hand had felt in hers. The way he had promised to always share his fears, his joys, and his burdens. But somehow, somewhere along the way, they had both stopped talking. Both had started hiding pieces of themselves, She realized with a pang that she had assumed the worst instead of asking the truth. She had let distance grow between them like a quiet, invisible wall. Tonight, she decided she would tear it down. Aaron came home later than usual. His footsteps on the porch were soft but deliberate. Lila heard him fumble with the keys, his usual hurried rhythm slowed by exhaustion. She waited until he entered the living room, dropping his bag by the door, loosening his tie. His expression tired, etched with worry. The sight of him made her heart tighten. He looked older somehow, worn down by invisible battles. She hadn't noticed how much the stress had been aging him. His hair was slightly disheveled, his eyes shadowed. And for the first time in months, he looked fragile in a way that made her ache to protect him. Lila's voice was calm, but her hands trembled. Slightly. "Aaron, someone came to see me today." His head snapped up immediately. His eyes widened, a flicker of fear crossing his face. "Someone?" he asked, his voice low and cautious. He paused, taking in her expression. There was no anger, no accusation, just a strange calm, edged with something heavier anticipation. He shifted uncomfortably, glancing around the living room as if searching for an escape. There was none. "Camille," Lila said, the name flowing out softly. "She works with you. She came here because she was worried about you." Hands twitched involuntarily. He leaned against the back of a chair, exhaling slowly. His usual confidence had melted into vulnerability. Lila watched him carefully. This was a man she knew intimately, yet she had rarely seen him like this, open, fragile, unguarded. The woman's visit had exposed a part of him he had tried to hide from everyone, even from her. Lila moved closer to him, standing silently while he processed her words. She didn't want to speak too soon. Sometimes the quiet before conversation carried more weight than words. Finally, Aaron's voice came, rough around the edges, betraying months of bottled-up tension. She told you about me?" he asked, almost in disbelief. "Yes," Lila said. "She said you've been struggling, more than I realized." Looked away, running a hand through his hair. His shoulders slumped, a subtle admission of defeat. "I didn't want to worry you," he said. His voice was quiet, almost choked with emotion. "I thought I could handle it on my own. I didn't want to be a burden." Lila felt a pang of guilt. He had carried the weight silently while she had assumed distance, perhaps even disinterest. "Aaron," she said gently, reaching for his hand, "you're never a burden. We're supposed to share things with each other, not hide them." His hand hesitated before meeting hers. The warmth of his touch was familiar yet distant, like a memory she had longed to recall. He swallowed hard and finally spoke. "The company. Things are complicated. Emerging departments, cutting positions, my team. We might lose people, and I can't let that happen. I feel responsible. I've been staying late trying to fix everything. I just didn't want you to see me stressed, worried, failing." Lila listened carefully. Every word revealed the silent nights he had endured, the anxious mornings, the private fears he had kept tucked behind a smile. Her chest tightened. "You've been carrying all of that alone?" she asked, the disbelief in her voice more about hurt than accusation. She had shared so little of her own worries with him too, but the realization that he had been shielding her from his stress, it cut deeper than she expected. He nodded. "I thought if I kept it to myself, I would spare you. But now I see it only made things worse. I became distant, cold, absent. I didn't mean to push you away." Lila's eyes softened. She could see the truth behind his words. He wasn't avoiding her. He was protecting both of them in his own flawed way. She thought of the lonely dinners, the quiet conversations that had ended abruptly. The nights she had gone to bed hoping he would talk, hoping he would reach for her. He had been there, but he hadn't shown her the battle raging inside him. "You should have told me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I would have understood. We could have faced this together." Aaron's eyes glistened. I know. I was afraid. Afraid that if you saw me struggling, you'd lose respect, lose love. Lila shook her head, incredulous. Aaron, love isn't about strength. It's about honesty, about being real with each other. You don't have to be perfect for me. To love you, a single tear slid down his cheek. Lila reached up and brushed it away. The gesture was gentle, intimate, familiar. He leaned into her touch, allowing himself to be comforted, something he had avoided for months. She felt the tension in his body slowly unwind, the invisible walls between them starting to crumble. I don't want to be a failure, he whispered. I don't want to lose you. You're not a failure, Leela replied firmly. You're human, and that's enough. It's always enough. The words seemed to surprise him. He pulled back slightly, searching her eyes as if trying to anchor himself in the truth of them. Lila smiled softly. She knew that this conversation, this vulnerability, was something rare. It was fragile, but it was real, and it was what they needed. Aaron swallowed and let out a long breath, his body sagging in relief. He hadn't realized how much he had needed someone to simply understand him without judgment or criticism. Leela's presence, her calm, her patience, was the lifeline he hadn't known he was searching for. I should have trusted you, he said quietly, almost a confession. I should have talked to you instead of hiding. You are talking to me now, Lila, reminded him gently, squeezing his hand. And that's all that matters. For the first time in weeks, Aaron felt a sense of release. The tension that had haunted him at work, the fear of failing, the anxiety about losing his position, it didn't disappear, but sharing it made it lighter. Lila didn't judge. She didn't scold. She simply listened and offered him her unwavering support. They sat together in silence for a few minutes. The room bathed in the soft glow of evening light. It was quiet, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was peaceful, a calm after the storm. Lila realized that these moments of vulnerability were rare gifts in marriage. Moments when honesty could rebuild walls that distance had broken down. Aaron's voice broke the silence. I've missed this. Talking to you like this. Not pretending. Everything's fine when it's not. Lila nodded. I've missed it too. I've missed us. He looked at her with a mix of regret and hope, his tired eyes searching hers. Can we start over? He asked softly. Not erase the past, but move forward without hiding things. Yes, Leela replied without hesitation. We can start over. But we have to promise something. Boy, he asked, leaning closer to be honest with each other, she said. No more walls, no more pretending. Whatever happens, we face it together. Aaron nodded. I promise. Lila reached out and took both his hands in hers. The simple gesture carried a weight. Neither of them could have expressed in words. It was a promise, a connection. A reassurance that love could survive the challenges if they faced them honestly. The evening stretched on. They spoke about small things, first light topics, easy laughter, but gradually they began to discuss deeper fears, the pressures of work, the insecurities each had harbored. Every word, every admission drew them closer together. It was a slow unwrapping of layers, a careful reintroduction to each other's inner worlds. The conversation wasn't perfect. There were pauses, moments of hesitation, even tears. But it was honest, and that honesty began to heal the quiet wounds of the past months. Lila realized something important. It wasn't Camille's visit that had shaken their marriage. It was the silence they had allowed to grow between them. The lack of communication, the assumptions. The fears of being burdensome, all of it had widened the space that love should have filled. But Camille's words had been a catalyst, a gentle push to make Leela see the truth. The real work began not of fixing, but of reconnecting, of rebuilding trust, of learning to be partners in every sense. Again, Aaron finally leaned back on the sofa. Exhaustion evident in his posture, but his eyes were softer, clearer. Thank you, he said quietly, not just for listening, but for understanding, for caring enough to wait and not get angry. Lila smiled. "That's what love is," she said. "Sometimes it's loud and dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet, patient and steady. And sometimes it's simply showing up for each other, even when we don't know what to say." He nodded, and for the first time in weeks, there was a sense of balance between them. The walls that had separated them were not gone entirely, but cracks had begun to form. The evening stretched quietly at first, almost deceptively calm. Lila sat beside Aaron on the sofa, her hand still resting in his, the warmth of their touch grounding them both. They had talked for hours about work, fears, and the stress Aaron had been carrying silently. The air felt lighter now, but there was still a tension that lingered, a tension born from months of unspoken words, of moments of frustration, of distance that neither of them had intended. They were safe in there, home, yet both felt the weight of everything they hadn't shared. Aaron leaned back, exhaling slowly, and let his head rest on the back of the sofa. "I don't even know where to begin," he admitted softly, his voice barely above a whisper. Lila turned to face him, seeing the exhaustion etched into his features. His usual confident demeanor had softened into something raw, unguarded. "I've been holding so much in for so long. I didn't realize how heavy it had become." She nodded, understanding immediately. "I felt it too," she said, her voice steady. "I felt the distance between us growing, but I didn't know. Why? I just thought maybe you didn't care anymore." He flinched slightly at her words, but only for a moment. "I never stopped caring," he said firmly. I didn't want to burden you with my struggles. Oh, I thought I had to protect you to make everything seem normal." Lila shook her head, frustrated at the thought that he had felt he needed to hide from her. "Aaron, love isn't about pretending. It's about being honest, about letting each other in, even when things are hard." He looked at her, his eyes reflecting a mixture of regret and relief. "I know that now," he admitted, "and seeing Camille today, it made me realize how much I've been avoiding you, how much I've been hiding. She gave me a mirror. Made me see what I was doing." Lila thought of Camille, the woman who had unexpectedly knocked on her door. She had appeared almost like a messenger, not to interfere, not to complicate things, but simply to reveal the truth. Oh, and in a strange way, Lila found herself grateful. If not for Camille, she might still be unaware of the storm Aaron had been facing alone. They sat in silence for a moment, letting the weight of the conversation settle between them. The city outside had quieted, the usual hum of traffic replaced by the soft whisper of wind through the trees. The world felt still, but inside their home, a new energy had begun to bloom, one of understanding, of shared vulnerability, of a love that had been tested but not broken. Aaron finally spoke again, his voice quieter this time, almost hesitant. "I didn't realize how much I missed us just talking, being close without worrying about pretending everything is perfect." Lila reached out and tucked a stray strand of hair behind his ear. "We've been so busy living in separate silences that we forgot how to just be together," she said softly. "But we can fix that. We can start now." His gaze softened and a faint smile touched his lips. "Start now," he repeated, almost like a promise to himself. I want us back the way we were, maybe even better." The moment felt delicate, almost fragile, yet it was charged with hope. Lila realized that love wasn't just about grand gestures or passionate declarations. It was about these quiet, intimate moments where honesty bridged the gaps that fear and pride had created. It was about holding hands, looking into each other's eyes and saying without words, "We're in this together." Aaron shifted slightly, turning to face her fully. "I've been so afraid. Afraid that if you saw me struggling, you'd think less of me. Afraid that my weaknesses would push you away." Lila's heart ached at his confession. "Aaron, I love you not because you're perfect, but because you're human. It's because you're honest, Because you care, because you fight even when it's hard. Your struggles don't push me away. They draw me closer. Tears welled up in his eyes. He looked at her, searching for reassurance, for a sign that she truly understood. Lila reached for his hands again, holding them tightly. "I understand," she said simply, "and I'm here always." He took a deep breath and let it out slowly, the tension in his body melting just a little. "I should have told you sooner," he whispered. "I should have trusted you." "You're telling me now," Leela replied gently. "That's what matters." The conversation shifted naturally after that. They spoke about small, everyday things, first lighthearted moments that made them laugh softly, easing them back into the rhythm of companionship. But gradually the topics grew deeper, touching on fears, insecurities, and hopes they had kept hidden. Aaron admitted how anxious he had been about his job, about failing as a provider, about not being the man he thought Lila deserved. Lila shared her own frustrations, the loneliness she had felt when he stayed late or seemed distant. Each word, each admission, wove them closer together. The walls they had built around themselves began to crumble, replaced by threads of honesty, empathy, and renewed trust. They discovered that their love hadn't disappeared, had been waiting, dormant, beneath the weight of unspoken fears and unsaid words. And now, in the quiet of their living room, it was beginning to bloom again. Aaron reached for her hand once more, holding it against his chest. "I feel like I've been living behind a mask," he said. "Pretending I'm fine when I'm not. Pretending I can handle everything on my own, but I don't want to pretend anymore. I don't want to hide from you." "You don't have to," Lila said firmly, squeezing his hand. "You never did. We face things together. It's what marriage is." He leaned closer, resting his forehead against hers. The closeness was electric, grounding, a reminder of the bond they had built over years of shared memories, laughter, and challenges. "I've missed this closeness," he admitted. "I forgot how good it feels to just exist with you without walls between us." Leela smiled softly, brushing her thumb over his knuckles. "We're here now, and we can keep building it, step by step." They sat together like that for a long time, letting the quiet envelop them. The soft evening light fell across the room, painting shadows on the walls. Lila thought about Camille again, the unexpected visitor who had sparked this reconnection. It wasn't her presence that mattered, it was the courage she had inspired. Courage to face the truth, to face each other honestly, and to begin mending what had quietly frayed. Aaron finally pulled back slightly, a tentative smile forming on his lips. "I don't want to ever go back to hiding," he said. "No more secrets, no more pretending. I want us to be real, fully, completely." Lila nodded. "I want that too. Honesty, openness, vulnerability. That's how we grow together." They spoke late into the night, unraveling months of unspoken tension, discussing worries and dreams alike. The conversation was emotional sometimes, tense, sometimes filled with laughter as they remembered lighter, happier moments. Every admission, every confession, every soft-spoken word brought them closer. They discovered parts of each other they had almost forgotten, and in doing so, they rediscovered the love that had been buried beneath misunderstandings and silence. Aaron admitted moments of fear that he wasn't enough, fear that he might fail her, fear that distance would permanently grow between them. Lila admitted her own fierce fear of being alone, of being disconnected, of not being seen. In that exchange of vulnerability, the intimacy between them deepened. They realized that true closeness wasn't just about shared joy, but shared burdens, shared fears, and shared courage to face life together. Eventually, exhaustion began to weigh on them, but neither moved to sleep immediately. Instead, they held hands, whispered reassurances, and allowed the warmth of each other's presence to soothe the anxieties of the past months. Lila felt a profound sense of gratitude, not just for the resolution that was unfolding, but for the clarity it brought. Their relationship was not perfect, nor would it ever be, but it was real. It was theirs. And that was enough. Aaron finally rested his head against her shoulder, letting go of the last fragments of tension that had plagued him. "I don't ever want to hide from you again," he murmured. "You won't have to," Lila said, resting her head against his, feeling the steady rhythm of his breathing. "We're in this together, always." In that living room, under the soft glow of the night, something shifted permanently. The invisible walls of fear, pride, and misunderstanding were replaced by transparency, empathy, and connection. Lila realized that love was not always about grand gestures or dramatic confessions. It was about being present, being patient, being willing to face fears and disappointments together. The night passed slowly, peacefully. They didn't need words anymore. The comfort of presence, the warmth of touch, the security of knowing they had faced the truth together. These were enough. Lila felt a calm she hadn't known in months, a sense of belonging that came from being truly understood. Aaron, in turn, felt the relief of being seen without judgment, loved without conditions, and supported without hesitation by morning. The first light filtered through the curtains, casting a soft glow across the room. They woke side by side, still holding hands, still connected in a way that felt stronger than before. The challenges of the future still awaited them, but now they faced them with a renewed bond, strengthened by honesty and trust. Lila and Aaron had learned an essential truth. Love, when tested, can endure. But only if courage replaces fear and honesty replaces silence.